A couple found a suitcase in their basement, then the FBI knocked on their door. Reddit user Lumberjack LMBR Jack and his wife had recently moved into a new home. Soon enough, you'll understand why he kept his name private. To save some cash, they'd purchased a fixer-upper in the Midwestern United States. So when they moved in, they immediately started renovating, beginning with the basement. However, they had no idea their construction would lead to the FBI knocking on their front door. As they began to work on their basement, they started noticing some strange discoveries, including a frightening suitcase. Soon enough, the FBI bombarded their home and their story went viral. Their lives would never be the same after their bizarre findings. Lumberjack and his wife's mysterious adventure started back in 2014. At the time, the young couple had just purchased a new home in the outskirts of Cleveland, Ohio. As any couple would, they looked forward to filling their first home with lots of memories. While the house had decent bones, some parts just needed a little love and care. The basement in particular would require a complete renovation. The couple didn't know it yet, but they were in for the shock of their lives. Unbeknownst to them, something lay hiding, lurking in the basement. Completely unaware, Lumberjack decided to start renovating his house almost immediately after moving in. Since the basement needed the most work, he started there. That's where he would discover the startling secrets. As Lumberjack surveyed the basement, he immediately realized that he faced a real challenge. It would require some help, possibly even professional. You see, the basement walls were covered in graffiti while the ceiling was drooping. Meanwhile, the rest of the wood had utterly warped. Then it would need a new coat of paint, and the list went on and on. Yet he felt determined to make it perfect. So, Lumberjack put his head down and started working. Nothing to do but get on with it. Unfortunately, he had no idea that most of his work would turn out to be in vain. He had no idea that his basement contained both great fortune and horrible secrets. During his renovations, Lumberjack started taking down the ceiling of the basement. There, he found an old suitcase hidden away and covered in dust. Obviously, someone went out of their way to hide it there, making sure that no one would find it. Of course, Lumberjack immediately stopped working and removed the old suitcase from the rafters. Then he called his wife down to the basement, sharing his discovery. As the two of them marveled over the suitcase, they couldn't help but wonder what on earth hid inside the case. While neither knew what lay inside it, they knew one thing for certain: it didn't end up there on accident. Somebody wanted to make sure that no one ever found the suitcase and its contents ever again. A million thoughts came to Lumberjack and his wife's mind when they found the suitcase. Whatever was inside was clearly important, and they both got an intense feeling from the case. Furthermore, even though it was small, it was quite heavy. They talked it over and decided to open it before contacting the previous owners or the police. However, before doing so, Lumberjack figured it would be better to open it outside. After all, he had no idea what was inside. For all he knew, it could be chemicals or something dangerous to the house. Before long, he would realize that it would have been wiser to open the case inside the house, away from watchful eyes. Even more surprising, what Lumberjack found was only the beginning of his discoveries. While they felt a little nervous, both Lumberjack and his wife also felt excited opening the case. After all, it's not every day you randomly discover a suitcase in your new home. Even if it turned out to be nothing but bricks inside, at least they had some fun. Realizing the fun they were having, they actually decided to prolong their excitement by playing a guessing game. They took turns looking at the case, lifting it, shaking it, and guessing what could be inside. Lumberjack's wife felt sure they'd find piles and piles of old pictures. That would explain why it was so heavy. Meanwhile, Lumberjack took a similar approach but guessed something more valuable like documents or baseball cards. Why else would the owner hide the suitcase in the ceiling? Finally, they decided to stop guessing and open it up. When they first opened the case, Lumberjack and his wife didn't notice anything significant. Honestly, they felt a little let down. All that lined the suitcase were 3 rectangular shapes wrapped in wax paper and an odd banana brush. Nothing special. Could this really be all? Then the couple started to peel away the wax paper, and that's where their frowns turned into gaping mouths of surprise. They thought they could see something that looked like stacks of cash within the wax paper as they got through layer after layer. But they didn't want to get too excited. After all, what if it turned out to be fake? As it turns out, it wasn't fake, but rather just the tip of the iceberg. What Lumberjack and his wife found behind the wax paper was truly remarkable. It turned out to be cold hard cash in the form of $20 bills. However, the bills were much older than the type we all use today. Still, cash never goes bad. Unsurprisingly, Lumberjack and his wife started jumping for joy at their discovery. They couldn't believe that they discovered such a collection of cash inside their own home. Lumberjack later commented, "These are all 20s, there may be a couple thousand here. We're freaking out at this point, this doesn't happen to us. What do we do? Where are the cameras?" Still, this was only the beginning of what the couple would find inside their basement. The cash didn't end there. When Lumberjack opened the 2 other bundles, they each contained more money. However, something was different. The second package didn't have any 20s, it was all 50s. What's going on here? There could be $5,000 here. Wait, the third package is hundreds. This is out of control, he recalled. However, after a few breaths, Lumberjack realized the bills came with an array of questions. Most importantly, where had it all come from? Looking at the bills, they all seemed to date back to the 1920s and 30s. The suitcase itself looked as though it came from the 30s, so he decided to continue investigating to see if he could solve the mystery. Right beneath the bundles of cash, Lumberjack found a hint that could point him in the right direction. What he spotted was an old copy of the Cleveland Plain Dealer, the newspaper from Cleveland, Ohio. It, like the cash, looked incredibly old. The newspaper in question was from March 25, 1951. They quickly realized that this old suitcase had been hiding in their basement for at least 65 years. Still, while they knew that the cash was always still legal tender, Lumberjack and his wife also knew that some old money became antiques, so they started looking into the worth of their home. As anyone in his position would feel, Lumberjack eagerly wanted to know the value of the money he discovered, so he decided to hire a lawyer that could help them in the matter. He surveyed the bills and told them something interesting. Some of them were star bills, meaning they'd never even been circulated. Fortunately for them, the lawyer got them a hard value for their findings. It turns out the bills were collector's items. All in all, Lumberjack could sell his cash haul for $23,000. Ecstatic, Lumberjack posted a final message to Reddit, thinking his adventure had ended. Little did he know, soon things would take quite the startling turn. Lumberjack would soon make another discovery that would bring the FBI to his house. Over the next few weeks, Lumberjack and his wife's excitement died down. Even with their newfound antique cash, the entire basement still needed to be redone. However, as he continued with the renovations of his home, Lumberjack found a second suitcase. He brought it down and took a deep, long breath, and as you might imagine, he was praying its content would be identical to the first one. As Lumberjack walked the second suitcase up to his wife, he looked at his walls as he did. He couldn't help but wonder what other mysteries his home held. Construction on the house had finished in 1940, so anything seemed possible. Little did he know his feelings were right. Lumberjack would find more and more as time went on, but not all of it was good. Unfortunately, when Lumberjack got upstairs, he realized his wife was at work. Despite his excitement, Lumberjack refused to open the suitcase there and then. He knew that he needed to wait until his wife returned home. Not only was it the right thing to do, but Lumberjack knew he'd never hear the end of it if he opened it without her. So while he waited for his wife, Lumberjack decided to pull out his phone and snap some pictures of the two cases next to each other. After all, he knew Reddit would also want to see the contents of the second case. As he did, he couldn't help but let his imagination get the better of him. What if the second case contained the same riches the first did? As soon as his wife got home, the couple snapped open the second case. Once again, they screamed in joy as they discovered that they were thousands of dollars richer. However, this time the money wasn't wrapped in a delicate wax paper. Instead, it was lined up in an almost organized manner. As they stared at the collection of bills, they wondered how much money could sit in the case. They also wondered what other surprises awaited them in the basement. However, when they went to bed that night, Lumberjack and his wife couldn't help but wonder if all the secrets would turn out to be good. Unfortunately, not everything they would find would be excellent. While they worried about what else they might find, Lumberjack and his wife couldn't hate on the cash they found. It turned out the second suitcase had even more money than the previous one. A few days later, the couple learned that they'd instantly earned an extra $45,000. Of course, the new homeowners felt incredibly blessed. Furthermore, smartly, they didn't plan on spending the money on boats or other luxury things. Instead, they'd invested in their new home. However, they had no idea that the second suitcase would bring them closer to more darker mysteries. Eventually, those mysteries would get the FBI involved, as the FBI would eventually tell them no one finds a suitcase full of money without finding a string to something darker. After the second suitcase, Lumberjack decided to explore more. Like many larger basements, this had a bathroom. There, he found an odd movable panel that he previously assumed held a dumbwaiter. Instead, it opened to a dark, cramped crawl space. Furthermore, he noticed that the previous owners left a medicine cabinet nearby. The medicine cabinet fit perfectly over the panel, as if it had once hid the entrance to the crawl space. But why? Inside, Lumberjack started exploring the crawl space. At first, he thought it was where the water heater was once held until he saw it was fitted with lighting. Strangely nice for a place they used to service the hot water heater, he commented. However, the more he looked around, the less his theory made sense. As Lumberjack and his wife continued to explore the room, they realized it couldn't have housed any heat or water. It was big enough to fit several people inside. Furthermore, the floor was covered up with multiple carpets as well as odds and ends. Immediately, Lumberjack started to get some very bizarre feelings from the room. What's more, it became evident to them that no one had stepped a foot inside this room in decades. As they looked around, the couple couldn't help but wonder about the purpose of this room. Furthermore, their thoughts kept returning to the medicine cabinet. What could have happened in this room that would cause someone to need to hide its entrance? While stumbling across a hidden room in your house can be a riveting experience, it also filled the couple with concerns. Since they'd been living there for just a couple of weeks, all these discoveries were starting to overwhelm them. As they went deeper into the crawl space, Lumberjack cautioned his wife to stay behind while he moved forward. At the far end of the hidden crawl space, Lumberjack found an ominous black door with a combination lock and brass latch. "I'm starting to freak out. This is looking like someone wanted to keep something in and not out," he said. "I'm researching how to get this open," he said. "If I fail, I'm calling a locksmith first thing in the morning. Until then, I'm sleeping with the lights on." Regardless of what mystery waited for him behind the door, Lumberjack knew that he couldn't turn back now. He spent the entire night looking for clues in the crawl space before opening the door. First, he found a bizarre plastic air vent fitted just outside his room. But why would anyone need a vent? The only explanation he could think of was whatever was on the other side of the room required a supply of fresh oxygen. Then, above the door, he spotted wooden panels and beams which seemed quickly thrown together with foam glue and nails. He could tell that there was some amount of space behind it, but no indication of what was within. Can anyone blame him for wanting to find out precisely what hid inside his house? The very next morning, he gathered enough tools to break through the heavy-duty locks. Finally, he was able to break in, but only more questions lie behind there. Immediately after opening the door, Lumberjack found something that shook him to his core. Behind the door lay a small, narrow, and empty enclosure. There, Lumberjack found a heavy-ass black sentry safe. What's more, the enclosure was soundproof and covered with a plastic tarp. Then he found some artifacts from a time gone by. Even further, there was also a raised area large enough to hold a single bed. Finally, the enclosure's edges were all taped up. Apparently, whoever built this room went to great lengths to make sure the space was also waterproof. Aside from the heavy sentry box, Lumberjack also discovered an intriguing brown briefcase, which was weighty and slightly worn. However, the biggest surprise would be what he found inside the briefcase. At that moment, Lumberjack thought he might end up discovering even more money, or perhaps he'd unravel something even more amazing. Lumberjack also considered the possibility of finding something unpleasant or worse, downright horrible. After all, he had no idea about this hidden room, and even further, everything about it seemed creepy and strange. While it could be something from a long time ago or more money, it could also be something worse. Once again, the only way to get the answers he desired was to open the case. The couple decided not to waste any more time and proceeded to open the third case. Inside, they found even more relics from the past. Like the other cases, this one also contained money, except this time around it was a foreign currency in a variety of envelopes from a variety of times. The briefcase also held 4 1-ounce silver ingots with a total value of around $80. What's more, there was a small wooden chest and a jewelry box. Inside the box, Lumberjack discovered a wealth of little gold trinkets, including 2 rings, bracelets, 2 old watches, and tie clips. The couple wondered who would leave all these precious things behind. Furthermore, why would they hide them so deep inside the home? The brown briefcase wasn't the only thing the couple found hidden in the room. After looking through the briefcase, Lumberjack and his wife returned the black sentry box. For those who don't know, these are essentially carryable safes. They're tough to break into and are regularly used to protect passports, wills, and smaller documents, as well as cash. So whatever hid inside the sentry box, someone had certainly not wanted anyone to get it. Looking around the odd room covered in plastic, Lumberjack thought that maybe the safe held a secret that he wouldn't want to unravel. What's more, he thought it could be something that would make them feel unsafe. Still, he needed to get to the bottom of this mystery, so he set to work cracking open the sentry box. After wrestling with the sentry case for some time, Lumberjack finally opened it. The first item confirmed his worst fear, a creepy note that simply warned him by saying, "Save yourself." Understandably, he started feeling uneasy. Who can blame him, right? Furthermore, Lumberjack began thinking this was some kind of sick joke. They didn't know things would soon take a horrible turn. In fact, it became so creepy that even the authorities would have to get involved. Still, there was so much more inside that sentry box that the couple would find soon. And they'd wish they would just turn back time and unopen the box. As Lumberjack and his wife delved deeper into the sentry box, they found another warning inside that said "Do not." Below the warning, they found a stack of old VHS-C cassette tapes which are used inside camcorders. This was when the Lumberjacks started to think they should contact the police or FBI or someone. Whatever was on those tapes couldn't be good. Lumberjack slowly began to remove the tapes from the safe. Some were marked with numbers and years, but one stuck out in particular. You see, this tape had the words "No, no, 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 no" feverishly scrawled in black ink on the cover. Lumberjack debated watching the recordings. Maybe he was overreacting and they would just be home videos. Perhaps these tapes would solve the big mystery behind the hidden room. Lumberjack decided to take some time to study the tapes. Oddly enough, it seemed like these tapes had nothing to do with any of his previous findings. Furthermore, there were 6 tapes in total, most of them labeled 1994 and 1995. At that moment, he felt his discovery was just too much for him and decided not to dig any deeper. However, he couldn't get the tapes out of his mind. Eventually, he decided to unravel the big mystery. Had he found something so strange he would never be able to put this behind him? If he'd already gone this far, what difference would it make? Well, these tapes would end up changing his life forever. After several nights tossing about and dreaming about those tapes, Lumberjack finally decided to play them and brought them out. Then he popped the tape into an old camcorder and pressed the play button. While Lumberjack never revealed what was on them, the scenes displayed before him were images he would never forget. In the end, Lumberjack didn't tell the internet what was on the tapes. In fact, whatever he saw was so startling he didn't even tell his wife. The tapes confirmed all his worst fears. They should have never gone in that room. Their desire for more money had led them down a dark and dangerous path, and now there was only one thing to do: get the authorities involved. Lumberjack wasn't even able to make it through the first tape. Furthermore, he turned it off within a couple of minutes and immediately called the authorities. While we don't know the exact contents of the recordings, we do know they were strong enough to have the FBI involved. In fact, they showed up almost as quickly as he called them. As soon as the FBI arrived at Lumberjack's house, they removed all the tapes and launched a full-scale investigation. What's more, the couple's renovation, of course, came to a pause due to all the agents in their home. After the FBI got involved, they started deciding what Lumberjack could and couldn't post to Reddit. Once upon a time, Lumberjack and his wife lived on a quiet block. Now they found it filled with police cars, FBI agents, and even fire trucks. Of course, the two of them never dreamed they'd see their new home filled with the FBI. However, the authorities were not about to take any chances with such a case. In fact, they took everything Lumberjack found with them. Plus, the couple had really no say about letting the FBI inside their house. The FBI didn't care if they had anything personal laying around. These agents weren't asking them to come in, they were making demands. We can only imagine how fragile and small the couple felt at that moment. Thankfully, Lumberjack and his wife are not in any trouble. However, that's where the good news ends. Unfortunately, the FBI confiscated all their items, including the money. They said they'd review all the materials and return anything that didn't become part of their investigation. Since that fateful day, Lumberjack has been in contact with the FBI several times. First, they ordered him to take the post down off of Reddit, which he did. Since then, they've been less forthcoming. However, there's a reason for that. They let Lumberjack know that they found enough on the tapes to open a criminal investigation. So it's unlikely that we'll ever know what was on those tapes, but one thing's for sure, it wasn't good. Believe it or not, stories like Lumberjack's aren't that uncommon, and they don't always end with the FBI busting down a door. No one dreams of the FBI knocking on their door after discovering a creepy box. However, most of us have dreamed of finding buried treasure. Better yet, wouldn't it be great to find buried treasure right in your own backyard? Well, that's precisely what happened to one man from Staten Island, Matthew Emanuel. He found the safe above buried in his garden. For many years, Emanuel walked by the box almost once a day, always assuming it was merely an electrical cabinet. Then his family started doing some renovations just like Lumberjack and his wife. When the construction workers needed to dig around the box, Emanuel needed to take a look at exactly what it was. When he finally got the lock safe open, his heart stopped. Click on the link in the description to find the video and exactly what he discovered inside the safe without needing to call the FBI.